Let me tell you something personal. Growing up in Nigeria, I loved Congolese rumba music. The rhythm, the energy, the way it hit differently from everything else. And there was this name I kept hearing in the songs. Sese Seko. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew the way it sounded. Powerful, musical, like it belonged in a song. Mobutu Sese Seko. It rolled off the tongues like something to be celebrated. And for a long time, to millions of people, it was. But here is what I didn't know as that child listening to those songs. The man behind that name had given it to himself. Mobutu Sese Seko Mbendu Wazabanga, which translates roughly to the all-powerful warrior who, because of his endurance and inflexible will to win, goes from conquest to conquest, leaving fire in his wake. He decided that is who he was. Nobody else did. He named an entire country after himself. The river, the currency, the people. And for 32 years, for 32 solid years, an entire nation had no choice but to agree. This is the story of Mobutu Sese Seko and what he did to one of the most resource-rich countries on the face of the earth.
Je m'appelle Mobutu. Je suis rentré pas pour m'occuper des intérêts de Mobutu, ni de la fortune de Mobutu, comme vous l'écrivez de temps en temps, mais des intérêts supérieurs du Zaire, c'est-à-dire notre unité, notre intégrité territoriale. Voilà.
To understand Mobutu, you need to understand the country he took over, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or as Mobutu would later rename it, Zaire. This is not a small, poor, resource-limited country. This is one of the most naturally wealthy pieces of land on the entire planet. Copper, cobalt, gold, diamonds, uranium. The Congo River, the second largest river in the world by water volume, running through land so fertile it could feed all of Central Africa. This country had everything, absolutely everything. And yet today, the Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the poorest countries on earth. But one man sits at the center of all of them. Mobutu was born in 1930 in a small town in Belgian Congo. His father died when he was very young. He grew up under Belgian colonial rule, a system so brutal, so extractive, so dehumanizing that even other colonial powers at the time looked at what Belgium was doing in Congo and were uncomfortable. Mobutu got some education, joined the colonial army, became a journalist for a while, and then in 1960, everything changed. Congo gained independence from Belgium, and the man who led the independence was a remarkable figure named Patrice Lumumba. Passionate, brilliant, uncompromising. A man who stood up and said clearly that Congo's resources belonged to Congo people, not to foreign corporations, not to foreign governments, to the people of Congo. And that speech, that simple, direct, honest speech, made him one of the most dangerous men in the world. To the West, the Americans you are watching, the Belgians you are watching, because a Congo that controlled its own resources was a Congo that couldn't be exploited. And that was the problem. Mobutu was close to Lumumba at first. He served as his army chief of staff. But in September 1960, just months after independence, Mobutu carried out his first coup. He removed Lumumba from power, and then he handed him over to his enemies. Lumumba was transferred to the Katanga region, where he was tortured and executed. He was shot. His body dissolved in acid, so nothing would remain. He was 35 years old at that time. Later, investigation would confirm what many already suspected. The CIA had been involved in the plot to remove and kill Lumumba. Mobutu was their man, their solution, their friendly face in the heart of Africa. For a few years, Mobutu stayed in the background. But in 1965, he made his final move. Another coup. This time, he took power himself, and he never let it go. The early years were not entirely disastrous. The economy grew, infrastructure was built, and Mobutu understood something important about power. You need a story, a narrative that makes people feel something. So he launched what he called Authenticite, an authenticity campaign. He told Congolese people to reclaim their African identity, drop the European names left behind by colonialism, wear African clothing, be proud of who you are. He renamed the country Zaire, renamed the river, renamed the currency, and renamed himself Mobutu Sese Seko, the all-conquering warrior, leaving fire in his wake. To ordinary Congolese people, it felt like dignity, like reclaiming something that had been stolen. But while they were celebrating a name change, Mobutu was doing something else entirely. He was stealing everything that wasn't nailed down, and some things that were. Mobutu treated the entire nation treasury as his personal bank account. Copper revenues, cobalt exports, diamond proceeds, all of it flowed through a system where Mobutu decided who got what. And Mobutu always got the most. At his peak, he was worth an estimated $5 billion. $5 billion. While the average Congolese citizen lived on almost nothing. He owned a fleet of Mercedes-Benz limousines, a personal Boeing 747 aircraft, a fleet of Concorde jets he chartered for shopping trips to Paris and Brussels. Yes, shopping trips on supersonic jets to Europe. While his country crumbled, he built a palace in his remote home village of Badolite, so extravagant, so out of place in the middle of the jungle, that people called it Versailles in the jungle. It had an airport big enough to land the Concorde because Mobutu needed somewhere to park it. And the West watched all of this and said almost nothing because Mobutu was their man. During the Cold War, Congo's location and resource made it strategically critical. America needed a friendly leader in Central Africa, and Mobutu was very friendly, as long as the money kept coming. The IMF lent him money, Western governments shook his hand, American presidents invited him to the White House. They knew exactly what he was doing. They didn't care. But while the West was propping him up from the outside, the country was collapsing from the inside. Roads deteriorated and disappeared. Hospitals ran out of medicine. Schools fell apart. The civil service stopped functioning because Mobutu had hollowed out every institution that could have checked his power. He did this deliberately because functioning institutions are a threat to a man like Mobutu. Independent courts, a free press, a professional military, all of these things limit what a leader can do. So Mobutu dismantled them, one by one, quietly, until all that remained was just him. By the 1990s, even his Western backers had grown tired of him. The Cold War was over. Congo's strategic value had changed, and the scale of Mobutu's theft had become impossible to ignore, even for governments that had been deliberately looking away. Protests broke out across the country. Opposition voices grew louder. Mobutu responded the way he always had, with violence, with detention, with fear. But this time, it wasn't enough. In 1996, a rebellion began in the east of the country, led by a guerrilla commander named Laurent Desire Kabila, backed by Rwanda and Uganda. The rebels moved fast. City after city fell. And Mobutu's army, underpaid, underfed, demoralized after decades of neglect, simply collapsed in front of him. Soldiers who had never been trained to fight just ran because nobody had given them a reason to stay. In May 1997, Kabila's forces reached Kinshasa and Mobutu ran. He fled the country he had ruled for 32 years, the country he had renamed after himself, the country he had looted to the bone. He flew out on his private jet with whatever he could carry, and he never came back. He died 4 months later in Morocco, sick, alone, in exile, and Congo was left with the wreckage. 32 years of stolen wealth, destroyed institutions, a military that couldn't fight, a civil service that didn't function, and a debt that the country was expected to repay, even though the money had gone into Mobutu's pocket. The conflict that followed his fall killed millions. Congo is still living inside that conflict today. So here is what I want you to take away from this story. Congo was not poor, Congo was robbed. There's a difference, and Mobutu didn't do it alone. He had help from Western governments who propped him up because it suited them, from international institutions that lent him money they knew he would steal, from a Cold War logic that said keeping a friendly dictator in power mattered more than the lives of ordinary Congolese people. Mobutu was a thief, but he was a thief with very powerful friends. And that is the part of this story that doesn't get told enough. He renamed himself the all-conquering warrior, leaving fire in his wake. He wasn't wrong about the fire because today, Congo is still burning. If the story makes you think, there are more like it on this channel. Real history, broken down simply. Please subscribe and don't miss the next one.